Have you ever heard of a battle so strange, so bizarre, that it sounds like something out of a fantasy novel? A battle where one side wasn't even human. Today, we're diving into one of the most peculiar and frankly, hilarious conflicts in military history, the Great Emu War of 1932. So, picture this. It's post-World War I Australia. Thousands of veterans have been given land in Western Australia to start new lives as farmers. It's a tough gig, but they're making it work. Then, disaster strikes. Not a flood, not a fire, but an invasion. An invasion of 20,000 emus. Yes, you heard that right. 20,000 large, flightless birds, migrating after their breeding season, discovered a paradise. Fields of ripe wheat, easy access to water. It was an all-you-can-eat buffet. For the farmers, it was a nightmare. These birds were like feathery bulldozers, trampling crops, tearing down fences, and eating everything in sight. The farmers, many of them ex-soldiers, were desperate. They needed help. So they went to the government, and the government's response was, well, it was certainly a response. The Minister of Defense, Sir George Pearce, saw an opportunity. The farmers needed the emus gone. The army had machine guns. And the machine gunners needed target practice. It seemed like a win-win-win situation, so he dispatched a small military force under the command of Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery. Their mission, to wage war on the emu population. The stage was set for what the media dramatically dubbed the Great Emu War. In early November 1932, Major Meredith, along with 2 soldiers armed with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition, arrived in the Campion district. Confidence was high. How hard could it be to shoot a bunch of big, dumb birds? The answer, as they were about to find out, was very, very hard. The first attempt was a total bust. The soldiers spotted a flock of about 50 emus. They set up their machine gun and prepared to open fire. But the emus were clever. They stayed just out of range. A few local settlers tried to herd the birds into an ambush, but the emus, with their uncanny sixth sense, split into small groups and scattered in every direction. The gunners fired, but the birds were just too fast and erratic. At the end of the day, maybe a dozen emus were killed out of a flock of 50. Not a great start. A few days later, they tried a new tactic. They'd heard 1,000 emus were gathered near a local dam. This was their chance. They set up an ambush, hid the machine gun, and waited. As the massive flock approached, the soldiers opened fire. The gun blared to life. And then, it jammed. After just a dozen birds fell, the rest of the flock scattered to the 4 winds, completely unharmed. Major Meredith was starting to get frustrated. The emus, it turned out, were tactical geniuses. Major Meredith himself noted in his report that each pack of emus seemed to have a leader, a big, black-plumed bird that would stand watch while the others caused havoc. If this leader sensed danger, it would give a warning call, and the entire flock would scatter before the soldiers could even get a decent shot in. They were like highly disciplined guerrilla fighters. He was quoted as saying, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. Think about that." A decorated military officer was comparing emus to tanks. The press had a field day. Headlines mocked the army's failure. One politician in the Australian Parliament sarcastically asked if medals would be awarded to the soldiers for their valiant efforts in the Emu War. The whole operation was becoming a national embarrassment. After about a week of this humiliating struggle, with very few emu casualties to show for it and a whole lot of wasted ammunition, the first campaign was called off. The military withdrew. Round 1 went to the emus. But the problem hadn't gone away. The farmers were still being overrun. The pressure mounted, and just a few days later, the Minister of Defense caved. The army was sent back in for a second round. Major Meredith, perhaps reluctantly, led the charge once more. This time, they had a bit more success. They learned from their mistakes. Instead of trying to ambush huge flocks, they focused on smaller groups. The fighting was more intense, moving further south. Over the next month, the soldiers managed to kill nearly 1,000 emus. The official report stated 986 kills with 9,860 rounds of ammunition. That's exactly 10 rounds per confirmed kill. Not exactly efficient, but it was an improvement. It was also noted that another 2,500 birds died from injuries they sustained. So, did the army finally win the war? Not really. Even with these casualties, the vast emu population was barely dented. In December 1932, the military was recalled for good. The Great Emu War was officially over. The final victor, by any reasonable measure, was the emus. They had outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and ultimately defeated the Australian military. So what happened next? The government realized that sending in the army wasn't the answer. Instead, they took a more practical approach. They established a bounty system, offering money for every emu killed by the farmers themselves. This proved to be far more effective. In just 6 months in 1934, over 57,000 bounties were claimed. The farmers, it turned out, were better emu hunters than the army. They also built stronger, taller, emu-proof fences, which helped control the birds' movement and protect the crops. The Great Emu War has gone down in history as a lesson in humility. It shows us that nature is often more formidable than we think, and that a military solution isn't always the best one. It is a story of human overconfidence versus the surprising resilience and tactical brilliance of a flock of flightless birds. It's a reminder that sometimes, the most absurd-sounding stories are the ones that are completely true. Today, the emu is a national symbol of Australia, featured on its coat of arms alongside the kangaroo. These two animals were chosen because they can easily walk backward, symbolizing a nation always moving forward. After learning about the Emu War, you have to wonder if it is also a subtle nod to their ability to win a war against the army. It's a bizarre, funny, and strangely inspiring story. So next time you see an emu, maybe give it a little nod of respect. You're looking at a descendant of the undefeated champions of the Great Emu War of 1932. Thanks for joining us on this dive into one of history's weirdest conflicts. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. Let us know in the comments what other strange historical events you'd like us to cover. See you next time.